Hey guys, welcome into SportsBit. Betting insights today, Friday, February 19th. It's Friday, baby. Run down everything coming up, play of the day, bad bets, wrong sides, big game breakdown. But first, Teddy, take it away with Iran and a fresh take.
Oh, yeah. NBA trading deadline yesterday. Basically nothing happened.
Yep.
And the media is, oh my God, nobody traded anybody. There's this panic that there aren't big deals going down. Guess what? NBA trade deadline deals, basically, they don't do anything any year. And in fact, if you look at the history, they more often hurt the teams that are buyers than help them. And they certainly don't produce champions. The last time we saw any significant difference between a team pre-trade deadline and a team post-trade deadline was when one of the best coaches in NBA history, Larry Brown, got Rasheed Wallace for Detroit, and then the Pistons went on to win a title. That was back in 2004, Paulie. It's not like these trade deadline deals are particularly meaningful, but boy, sure seems like there are a lot of guys cashing paychecks because they got to talk about the trade deadline deals. Nothing happened, no big deal. But maybe the reason why nothing happened is because every team knows Golden State is the best. Nobody's going to beat the Warriors this year.
Yeah, good point there. This isn't a rant, but you wonder if the guys who were rumored to be dealt, if they're going to sulk a little bit, and maybe they could be a problem in the locker room. Now, you might want to throw Dwight Howard's name out there, but I think he'll be fine because he's going to opt out. He's going to want a long-term deal and $30 million a year coming up next year, so he doesn't want to hurt his value. But some of the other guys, maybe you worry about that, where it's like, hey, screw you. You kept throwing my name out there. This is what you think of me, that you wanted to trade me. Now I have to go back to that same organization. Could that be a problem?
Oh yeah, I mean there are some very tenuous chemistry situations in NBA locker rooms at this stage of the campaign. So it's worth noting what kind of teams you're getting good feels about when you read their quotes coming out of the locker room, and the teams where you don't get those quotes. In fact, that'll have something to do with our play of the day later in the show. But Paulie, what do you think? Time for bad beats and bad bets? Because there were some brutal ones last night, including one that had you sweating your ass off.
Oh, I was going nuts. So our play of the day was Eastern Washington. We're laying 3. We're up 14. It's 90-76 with a minute 50 left. Safe,
Oh, that
right?
was wire to wire job, Paul. They were up the whole way. There was no,
Yeah.
that was a right side the whole way until.
Yep. They were up 18 in the second half, as I mentioned, right, until they're up 14 with a minute 50, and then missed free throws, turnovers, and one. Sacramento State hits another 3. Next thing you know, Sacramento State has the ball after a missed free throw, shooting a 3 to cut it to 2. They miss. They get the offensive rebound. With 1 second left, they get another look, and we would have lost. Thank God he missed. Winner, Eastern Washington wins by 5. Big sweat there in that one, Teddy.
Oh my God! I mean, I had a bunch of sweats last night as well. I had a huge play on Tulsa last night. They give up the game-tying layup with 1 second left in regulation, and then at the end of overtime, Tulsa, like, I don't even want to talk about the final possession, but basically they turned the ball over twice in the closing seconds, Cincy with a wide-open 3 to win the game, and they clanked it. I got the win. I got the cover. There was a sweat and a half, but what do you say to Cleveland Cavaliers backers today, Paul? I mean, you want to talk brutal. Cavs, wire to wire, dominate Chicago in that ball game. They're up 106-86. They're up 20 points, laying, 12 and a half, 13, with a minute 20 left. You got to be feeling pretty good about that wager at that moment. 106-95 final. The last 3 Cavs possession. Eamon Shumpert, missed jumper. Eamon Shumpert, stupid turnover. Eamon Shumpert, stupid turnover. And then Brooks hits the 3 with 5 seconds left. Ugh, brutal if you laid with Cleveland, although when it comes to laying double digits in the NBA, it's hard to say there are bad beats when that happens. It's a very tenuous point spread range to be getting involved with, particularly immediately after the All-Star break. Nonetheless, brutal if you had the Cavs minus the points last night.
Yeah, no doubt. Those are the bad bets. How about the wrong sides? Again, there's plenty of these.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at Utah last night. I mean, the sharp money poured in on the Utah Jazz. They were thinking the Wizards had some depth issues, and Utah's this bet-on team. I mean, money went nuts on Utah from +1 to -2. All that money lost. Utah Jazz, a wrong side last night. San Antonio, a wrong side last night. But that was kind of the opposite, where the money, late money, poured in against the Spurs on the
Yeah.
Clips once it was announced that Kawhi Leonard was going to be out, joining Bonner, joining Ginobili on the sideline. San Antonio basically a no-show in the first game after the break. And, of course, it wasn't any better if you had the over in that game. Wrong side if you had the Spurs or the over. And, of course, another top 5 team goes down in college hoops, Paulie. The Maryland Terrapins play at Minnesota. I think that was the Gophers' first Big Ten win, wasn't it? Heck of a
that
win.
was it.
They knocked off the Terps, but Maryland backers laying 9, laying 10 a tip. No, that was the wrong side too.
Total no-show, and that is the 33rd time this year that a top 5 team has lost. The record through February is 35. They'll probably break that by Saturday afternoon. Unbelievable this season in college basketball. Time for the market report, Teddy, and line moves. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go real quick here. The early money for Friday's NBA. We've seen a big move on the Magic Mavs total. That total opened 200. Now we're looking at 204.5. Could go higher. The early money loves Orlando to be a higher scoring team immediately after the break. And we're seeing a big move for Memphis, Minnesota total as well. Open 202. We've seen a little bit of T-Wolves money, but that total also steamed up to 205. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes higher as well. Last but not least, yeah, the Bulls got the money last night. The betting markets are not enamored with Chicago right now. Toronto opened -5. That number's been bet up to 6.5. Again, early morning moves give you an idea where the sharp money's going. Certainly not a broader picture of where the entire market's moving, because guess what? The market moves all day long, Paul. It really does.
Up next, we'll go rapid fire with 5 big games in Big Game Breakdown, including the Warriors, as they are 48-4 and try to break the Bulls record and continue that 11-game winning streak. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insights today. All right, now it's time for a Big Game Breakdown. Rapid fire with 5 key games. Let's start with the Thunder and the Pacers. Teddy, do you think Donovan's beginning to get to OKC and they're figuring it out? And is Westbrook starting to figure it out?
You know, I'm still not sold on Donovan as a guy who's making appropriate defensive adjustments. And when you look at Oklahoma City this year, their defensive numbers have been spotty at best. But when we talk about Russell Westbrook, and here's a guy that's taken a ton of criticism at times in his career for being immature, look at the numbers, man. Russell Westbrook, number 2 in the NBA in real plus minus, plus 9.3 per game. That's up from 7.1 last year. He is, again, based on all the stats being crunched, the second best player in the NBA this year. Russell Westbrook's clearly getting it. And Donovan appears to be handling him better than Scott Brooks ever did. But of course, Donovan's still worried about, I'm still worried about his ability to manage the player rotations, maybe to build the defense here. But from a Russell Westbrook standpoint, this guy is a monster. That being said, I haven't been in any rush to lay points with Oklahoma City, given their defensive question marks. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Indiana bringing their A game tonight.
All right, Golden State laying 9 at Portland. They had sort of long road trip, and no one's talking about this. The key to this Golden State team, how about the fact there's not the one-and-dones on this roster? The 3 best players spent a lot of time in college, and you just look at these numbers here. Curry, 3 seasons in college, 104 games. Green, 4 years, 145 games. Thompson, 3 years, 98 games. So you look at that where these one-and-dones could be poison and toxic. These guys come in a lot of time in college. Give me the 3 or 4 year guys. Maybe it's a big reason why the mid-majors have had so much success, and that's a huge key to Golden State that nobody's talking about. And also the historic numbers with Curry. How about this quickly, Teddy? He could average 36 and 5 for the season. He's averaging 31.7 points per 36 minutes, the highest since Michael Jordan in 1986. You have something interesting, though, on Portland as well.
No question. I mean, you talk about the experience factor for Golden State. And again, at the NBA level, nobody talks about, hey, was this guy a one and done in college, or did he play for 4 seasons? But you know what? It makes a big difference at the pro level, and people fall in love with players' potential. Look at the Blazers, 8-1 straight up and 8-1 against the spread going into the All-Star break, one of the hottest teams in the league. And look at their young starting backcourt. This graphic will show it real clear. Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, both of whom played 4 full years of college basketball. Between them, 215 combined collegiate games. And guess what? They've gone through the first couple years in the NBA. These guys are seasoned, and there's genuinely smart basketball being played for that Portland backcourt. I wouldn't be surprised if their point spread run continues post-All-Star break.
Good numbers there. Now to college hoops, and the look-ahead line, Louisville is 4 tomorrow against Duke. And will Duke have 5, 6 healthy players? They could be down to 5 healthy guys. Here's Coach K. Matt Jones sprained his ankle. He's in rough shape. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Not only is Jones there for the leadership as he was with the championship run, but what he brings on and off the court. And earlier this year they played, and Duke won 72-65. But Pitino, a dynamite coach, is the best at wearing a team down with that press. Will Duke run out of gas in the second half? It worked against Carolina, and that was an unbelievable performance and effort in the second half. I don't know if they can do it again on the road against Louisville.
And remember, they had the game against Virginia that came right down to the wire before the North Carolina game. I would not be surprised at all to see Duke wear down in the second half of this one. And again, what we're quoting here are the very first point spreads for college basketball. We call them look-ahead lines. I would expect market money to come on Louisville. We're not the only one that's going to see this. Let's talk about another showdown, though, one in Morgantown, West Virginia. We have to talk about the Oklahoma Sooners, Paul, because this is a team, I don't want to say they're falling apart, but guess what? They were number 1 in the nation.
Yeah.
And now they're completely out of the Big 12 championship race at 8-5 in conference play. Now, they gutted it out. I mean, a real gut-out win against West Virginia at home back in January. The 2-point victory did not sniff a point spread cover in that ball game. It's worth noting they had more than twice as many turnovers, 17, as assists in that ball game. And we talk about Oklahoma. The number one thing that stands out to me, Paul, they look gassed. I mean, they've played a top 5 schedule in terms of toughness. They made 2 trips to Hawaii pre-conference play. And just look at this graph right here. Oklahoma's 3-point shooting was great over the first half of the campaign. Last 5 games, it stinks. Buddy Hield, great 3-point shooting. Over the last 5 games, coming really back to earth. And of course, then we look at this second graph. I'm going to let you read it, Paul. Look at what Lon Kruger is saying after the loss to Texas Tech for Oklahoma.
Yeah, this is interesting and great numbers here. But here's Kruger talking about when we played Texas Tech, they beat us to every loose ball, and that is cause for concern. When you got a team that's winning every loose ball, extra possessions, I absolutely agree with Kruger that they're tired, and that's cause for concern if you're Oklahoma. But still, a number 1 seed, even though they continue to lose because everyone else around them is getting beat. But good comments and interesting comments there from Lon Kruger. Last one, Teddy. Look ahead line, Purdue and Indiana. Indiana laying 4 in this one.
Yeah, and this is a really fun matchup to consider because you got the Hoosiers outside quickness against the Boilermakers size inside. But I'm a little bit concerned. You know, my gut reaction here is, oh my God, this is too many points for Purdue. And then you start to look at what's been happening to Purdue on the road. Here's a graph showing you the last 4 Big Ten road games. Outscored in the second half at Minnesota. Outscored in the second half badly at Iowa. Outscored in the second half badly at Maryland. Same story at Michigan. They've been outscored by 50 points in their last 4 road games in the second half. Even in that home overtime win against Michigan State last week, Purdue was outscored by 12 after the break. They're not making real good halftime adjustments right now. They look like they're wearing down. So even though I think Purdue is a better team than Indiana, I don't know that I'm in love with them, plus the points as they travel to Bloomington on Saturday.
Great numbers as always. Good breakdown. Up next, the deep dive. 3 unique scheduling spots in the NBA, and we'll recap the trade deadline and some of the moves that were made, plus the play of the day. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insights today. Time for deep dive, the big topic of the day. We'll get to the trade deadline and all the moves that were made in a second. But first, Teddy, 3 unique scheduling spots in the association. Let's start with the Wizards. Back-to-back-to-back games. They won last night at home against the Jazz. Now they're in Detroit. That's followed by another game on the road against the Heat. So because of the snow out, and they used to do this back in the 60s, if you can believe it, they did this in the 60s and the 70s where the guys had to go back to back to back. And with the Wizards, could be interesting from in-game wagering perspective, where if they decide to phone it in, if they're down early, let's move on to Miami. We're not going to be able to win this one. So bizarre situation here. We'll see how the Wizards do with the middle game of the back-to-back-to-back.
That being said, there are definitely teams that have an edge getting the rust off in game one against a team that hasn't gotten the rust off post All-Star break. Yeah. So I wouldn't be super quick to be betting against Washington tonight. But, I mean, how does Randy Whitman deal with these 3 games in 3 nights? Look at the picture. He doesn't even know. And, of course, you've got Utah in a crazy situation tonight. Utah traveling back from D.C. Remember, yesterday's game was a write-in game following that snow out. This is the longest trip a team will make for a back-to-back setting all year. The Celtics plane landed in Salt Lake City on Wednesday, about 40 minutes after the Jazz left for D.C. So even though Utah has the game under their belt, it's not an ideal travel spot for the Jazz.
And then you have the Spurs. How bad are the Lakers? We don't know about Kawhi Leonard. They have other guys that are out, and they're still laying 11.5. So it's a back-to-back, but it's on the same floor as last night where they were humiliated by the Clippers and came out with a listless performance in the first half. So an interesting scheduling spot there with the Spurs in this one, Teddy.
Yeah, but really, when we talk about post-trade deadline, again, I ranted about it a little bit at the start. Yeah. You know, the scheduling spots are unique, but we got to talk about some of these deals. And the reality is that I think a couple of teams got a little bit better. I don't think anyone went from being a non-championship contender to a championship contender. I don't know that there was any deal that was made that's going to make a difference even in a first-round series. But one team I know got better, and that's the Detroit Pistons. Look at this picture of Tobias Harris. He's a happy guy, but boy, he sure looks happy. You think he's happy to have a better shot at being in the playoffs? Understand Van Gundy in Detroit. And then they follow that up, picking up Marcus Thornton and Don Monjunas from Houston. Don't know how healthy Monjunas is going to be, but he's the stretch 4 that Van Gundy's been looking for. I like these trades for Detroit moving forward, and I like the roster Stan Van Gundy is building.
What do you think of Foy going to OKC and Jeff Green for Lance Stevenson as the Clippers? That's weird that the Clippers got Jeff Green because Doc coached him in Boston and they didn't exactly get along. And Jeff Green had some issues in that Memphis locker room where there was one quote saying, "Good, I was ready to strangle him," from one player. Oh, man.
And it's a weird fit, you know? I mean,
yes.
What LA wants Jeff Green to do is exactly what he didn't do in Memphis. You know, I mean, Memphis got him hoping, hey, he's going to fill this stretch 4 role. He's going to bring it on the defensive end. He didn't do any of that stuff. Now he goes to LA, and, you know, I can understand the Clippers trying to make moves because their window isn't very big. You know, Chris Paul's getting older. Blake Griffin issues continue to surround him. Let's just put it that way. And Doc Rivers is like, look, if we can do anything now, let's try to do it now. But I think a lot of the lack of activity in the trading deadline yesterday is because teams realize nobody's beating the Warriors. And if somebody beats the Warriors, they're not beating the Spurs. And if they beat the Warriors and the Spurs, they're not beating the Thunder. And it's either going to be the Cavs or, you know, there's not, I mean, again, I'm bullish on Boston as a contender in the East. That's not a mainstream thought. And the mainstream thought process seems to be there's 4 teams, only 4, capable of winning a title this year. Therefore, why mortgage our future? But I got to ask you about this one. Washington gets Markieff Morris right at the trade deadline. He can help them. Why didn't they get him last week? I mean, why didn't they get him with a chance to acclimate over the break? Why did they bring him up right before the deadline? It's the kind of deal, if you're going to make it and give the chance a guy to be a real contributor for you.
That's a good point. And when he was reinserted back into the starting lineup, he put up good numbers with the Suns. So I think it's a pretty good fit there. And it was just a bad situation in Phoenix. Morris, a big problem there. But going back to what you said, and we heard Milwaukee wanted Dwight Howard. The Rockets called 6, 7 different teams, but teams didn't want to take Howard on because he's going to opt out, and they thought he was going to leave. How about another issue why we didn't see deals? How about the salary cap going up? I mean, if you see a $20 million jump coming up next year, maybe they're like, I don't want to take on some of these bad deals and deal with some of these contracts when they're going to see a huge jump in the cap.
Yeah, lots of guys are going to get paid lots of money this summer, but the need to dump some of the big salaries, not quite as urgent this year as it's been in seasons past because of that expected rise for the salary cap this coming summer.
I was also disappointed in the Celtics and Danny Ainge. Make a move. Try to grab Horford. You're right there with a chance to knock off Cleveland. When you have all these draft picks and you're willing to give up, we talked about this earlier, but 3-4 draft picks to move up just to take Justice Winslow, you should have made a move and grabbed Horford. Why not? What else?
Well, did you hear the quote from Ainge? Ainge is like, we were about to make a big deal. The other team pulled out. He didn't say the player. He didn't say the team, but I'm pretty confident it was a big man. So I think Boston was trying to make a move, but I don't think they needed to make a move this year. The Celtics are building something special, and you don't dump draft choices and dump future assets in a year like this where, Golden State's going to be the winner.
Okay, 2-1 so far. Money time. The play of the day. 2-1 this week with a vicious beat. We had Iowa State up 1 with 90 seconds. They lost in overtime, getting 4 against Baylor. Also, the Boston selection earlier in the week to win the East, 17-1. Teddy, take it away.
Sure. Let's go right back to the Boston Celtics. We've looked at Boston in depth on this show all week. And certainly, I talked earlier about the scheduling spot for the Celtics. Yeah, Utah played last night. They played last night in D.C. The Celtics have been in Salt Lake City for 2 days already. And the Jazz making a cross-country flight for the second of back-to-backs. Boston's a better team. It's a better spot for Boston. I know, all they got to do is win to cover. Yeah, let's do it. Give me the Celtics -1. That's the sports bet play of the day for Friday.
All right, a lot of fun, Teddy. Fun week. Have a good weekend. Paul Howard, Teddy Covers will be back Monday on Sportsbet. Betting insights today.